somewhere. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And a very warm welcome to all of us who are joining us for this webinar. Looking forward to an exciting, engaging, and a very interesting discussion that we're just about to start off. And Happy New Year to all of you. We hope the new year is coming along well, and 2021 portends good news for all of us. So the title for rather the theme for this discussion this afternoon, morning, night, evening, wherever you're watching us from is scaling through 2021 with solid plans. And my name is Richard Kagoe, so I'm going to be the moderator for today's conversation. And we're very privileged to have had Ngamia Holders Platform, who are actually the host of this event. The firm is technological outfit with various software products like Ngamia Apps platform that basically connects customers with service providers in the transport, logistics, production, and supply chain industry. They are software innovators, engineers, and thought leaders in the industry, and they're currently using mobile and web technology platforms to facilitate different business models in this sector. So quite innovative, disruptive, and very trendy organization that is offering digital solutions to firms and individuals operating within that sector. So before we do the introduction of our four panelists today, I'd just like to acquaint you with some housekeeping rules today. So I just want to inform you that the webinar is currently being recorded, and we're going to be sharing a link just right after this event. And we welcome you to revise and just go through the content once again individually. And if possible, you could share that with also your friends. So feel free to also join the conversation on Twitter using the, all right. So we'll just let you know about that because also we want to engage guys who are watching us also on Facebook and also on Twitter. So this event, or rather this webinar, is also being broadcast live. So feel free to check with us as well. So we also do invite your comments because it's not just a passive conversation. So it's very engaging. And so we're giving you the opportunity to, send in your questions, share with us your comments. And we're going to be having the Q&A chat box just below there on the screen, so where you can be able to, just pop a question, and we're going to be directing it specifically to some of the panelists who will be able to aptly respond to some of the questions and comments that you would be having for us. So thank you so much. And for all of us who would like to participate, then you could send in your question as well. I've an email that's on social at ngamia.africa. So without taking so much time, let's get started. Let me just do a quick introduction to our panelists. I'll start off with Dr. Wale Akinyemi. He's a gentleman with a very nice bookshelf just right behind him there. So Dr. Wale Akinyemi has his background in demography and social statistics. He's a leadership and organizational culture and transformational expert who has served as a consultant for the United Nations, Fortune 500 companies, governments and organizations around the world. He's also an author of 18 books and an innovator of many development indexes and tools. His purpose in life is just one: to transform Africa one mind at a time. Wow, fancy. I think I should also come up with such a tagline, eh? All right, so then joining us, Jackie Keya, would you just wave? All right, so that's Jackie Keya. She's a psychologist, a counselor, a life coach, and also runs a one-on-one life coaching program dubbed a Fresh Start Program, and is a founder of Blended Family Network, an organization that does support step families to build emotionally healthy and balanced relationship. This is through stepmom programs, step couple programs, divorce care programs, and one-on-ones smart step family coaching. Amazing there. Great work you're doing there, Jackie. And the guy who could be probably somewhere in Cape Town because he's so far right there. And he's only a bright guy, I guess, from our panelists. He's bringing us some bit of light and sunshine. Well, that's Eric Muriithi. Would you just wave at us, Eric? Yeah, he's the managing director and founder of Blaze Consulting. a Pan-African employee engagement firm. He holds an undergraduate degree in sociology and philosophy from Kenyatta University here in Kenya. He's also a professional certificate holder in marketing and financial accounting from the University of Pennsylvania. Eric is the immediate past president of Rafiki Toastmasters Club and an area director serving under Toastmasters East Africa District. He's a life coach, mentor, trainer, community leader, and a thought leader at the same time. Muriithi is also very passionate about African leadership, startups, community development, and also, again, social transformation. And lastly, we've got Eddah Munyi. Eddah, would you just wave at us? All right, good to see you there, Eddah. Eddah is an international coach of Federation, certified coach, an accredited Clarity 4D business partner. Wow, you just need to clarify to us, 4D business partner. And is a certified trainer with International Finance Corporation, IFC. Her coaching experience does span across Kenya, Uganda, Botswana, Mauritius. She's also the Director Executive Education at Strathmore University Business School, the leading business school in Eastern Africa region. She has previously worked for oil marketing firm Total PLC, a leading supplier of petroleum and gas products in the East African region, serving in different capacities. Her role has also been as a territory manager in charge of growing the general trade and in specifically the coast region part of Kenya. She holds a Bachelor of Business Management, a Master in Business Administration, Strategic Management, and is a certified public accountant, CPA. Eddah has also played a leading role in organizing the first MSME Presidential Roundtable in Kenya that enabled the sector to have an audience with the president. So basically, just want to acquaint you with the flow that we'll be using specifically for this discussion. We're going to be tackling specifically mental health. We'll be looking at, how you can own your space specifically within the corporate sector. And also we'll be delving a little bit in terms of personal leadership. So our discussions will be sort of like centered around those 3 or 4 themes that we'll be looking at. So also just touching on issues to do with, how you can be, can guarantee yourself and how you can grow yourself financially this year. 2020 was indeed a very difficult year, not only for individuals, governments, and also organizations. So that presents us with an opportunity, just looking at various themes that are going to be very helpful for us and just to help us chart 2021, coming up with also solid plans. So just to get this conversation started, I just want to hear from our panelists. How would you describe your 2020 in one word? And maybe I'll start off with Eddah.
Okay, thank you, Richard. And I want to take this opportunity to just appreciate Ngamia Webinar for arranging this very timely session for all of us. I think for me, 2020, I would say it was a time to reinvent, and I can just take a minute and just explain that a little bit. When I talk about reinventing, a lot of things happened in 2020. In 2020, a time like this, we had many plans, both at a personal level and at organizational level. So if I look at a personal level, I had plans of programs that I wanted to take, certifications that I wanted to do, and many other personal things that I wanted to achieve. If I look at the business, we had very big plans of going to Malawi, going to Mauritius, going to Ghana, and traveling the world in terms of delivering the programs that we do at Strathmore Business School. 2 months down the road, a lot happened and the borders were closed and there were job losses. There were all sorts of things that really interrupted the sector that I operate in, and in fact interrupted all the sectors. I operate in a school, meaning that schools were shut down. We had to go home. And as a business leader, we sat there and wondered, is this the end? And we had to reinvent very quickly, get into the online business. And I'm here to say that gladly Strathmore was able to shift to online teaching very fast. And we were able to continue doing that for all our programs from undergraduate, master's, PhD, executive education, and we were able to move on forward. But at a personal level, was not able to do some of the things that I had planned to do. But I got an opportunity last year to be able to take up even a scholarship program, which I had not foreseen a time like this in the beginning of the year. So take up a scholarship program from Stanford University, which I had not foreseen. And that gave me an opportunity to reinvent my coaching experience and what that I needed to be able to do. Got to a point of sitting down with my plans that I had beginning of the year. Somebody said, we plan and God laughs, you know, many plans that we had, but you have no way of knowing what is going to happen tomorrow. And so for you to be able to still remain sane, you have to have the agility to be able to reinvent your plans, take care of your mental health. And I'm glad that we are talking about mental health. Take care of your growing. I'm a person who believes in lifelong learning. And in lifelong learning, we are believing that can you be able to look past the dark cloud and see the silver lining? And so for me, I would say it was a moment of reinventing. And I'm glad that I'm a better person than I was when the year started.
That's Eddah, for just letting us know about how we can, spot opportunities, and amidst all the doom and gloom, there's still lots of positive stuff. But great to see how you were able to stay resilient, and how good stuff really came out of that. So maybe you could just hear from Dr. Wale. Just one word to describe your 2020.
Just one word. That word will be interesting.
Interesting.
Okay, do you want a sentence?
Yeah, Manny, you could just support it.
For me, it got me thinking very deeply. Just like Eddah said, a lot of change happened. A lot of people a lot of organizations, individuals had to make changes. And many of these changes were dramatic. So that means they were possible all along. So my thinking is, why then didn't we think of making some of these transitions before Corona came? Number one. Then number two, what other areas can we be transiting to right now that we are not? You see, many people reacted to 2020. And when I use the word react, I want you to think of a fire brigade, somebody who has always wanted to work with the fire brigade. He has prepared and prepared and prepared and prepared, and eventually he gets the job. The day he gets that job, what he's looking forward to the most is a fire, because he has prepared extensively for it. And that is why such services are called rapid response, not rapid react. You see, when somebody is not well and we say so-and-so is responding to medication, it's a positive. When we say they are reacting to medication, then there is a challenge. So we see the rapid response, and I think most people reacted to 2020. Some got away with it, some were lucky. But how do we respond to 2021?
All right.
Because a question I have put forward is this: what if, just what if 2020 was just the warm-up? What if that was just phase one, and 2021 is when the real drama is going to happen? Are we ready? Let me stop there.
Good question there. Thank you very much, Dr. Wale. So speaking about scenario planning and anticipating changing factors in the course of what we do. Jackie, 2020, what was it like for you? How would you just quickly summarize it in a minute?
For me, in one word, I'd say it was reflective. Because we had to be quarantined, most of us, okay, for me, I got time to self-reflect, spend time with my family, because now you have just the people that you could quarantine with are your close, the family mostly. And of course, that is when I know most people are saying during this time, there was a lot of domestic violence. There was a lot of domestic violence and relationships also that really, really got affected. But it's because during this time, it magnified the problems that we had in our relationships. It magnified who we are individually when we are not having distractions, like I have to go somewhere to meet so-and-so, have coffee. We are always on the run, but now you couldn't be on the run. So it was a reflective moment. Personally, it was a reflective moment even for my business. Though the business didn't do bad, because I think people needed support in their mental health. So the business-wise, it was good. And I got also to know that I can actually support my clients without seeing them one-on-one. Mm-hmm. So for me, 2020 has been good because of reflection. I feel like 2021 is better for me because I have never started the year the way I have started 2021, because I had moments of reflection. So for me, reflection is the word.
Right, reflection. And I guess lots of us who are part of the conversation this afternoon, if you're in East Africa, you would actually, relate to what Jackie was talking about. So stopping, pausing, and just thinking through life and what that means to you. So Eric, you get the last word when we just doing a quick wrap up on maybe what we've been thinking about the year 2020. What was it like for you?
Thank you, Richard, for inviting me into the conversation, and Happy New Year to everybody. It's indeed delightful to be here. If you ask me one word that represents 2021, it's hard to get one word, but here's one: discombobulating. I had to put that out because I'm also here representing Toastmasters, so we have to have big words, so that my Toastmaster friends here know that I represented them well. Anyway, to scale it down to something maybe palatable, disorienting. Just like many people who are here agree, it was disorienting for me. And this reminds me of a quote from Mike Tyson, the famous boxer. Mike Tyson says that everybody has a plan until they are punched in the face. And that's what it was for me. We just came from December and January. We're excited. We have great plans. We're going to change the world. We're going to Africa and following Dr. Wale closely, changing one mind at a time. Maybe as Dr. Wale changes a mind, I can change a heart so that people are happy. So we had a plan. But come March, April, the plan meant nothing. And I think I spent a month or two there, to be very honest, in limbo, just wondering, how do we take it on from here? And what I find interesting is that in many of the areas that I am representing, people moved on. I mean, like in Toastmasters, I'm a division director in Toastmasters. Typically, our meetings used to have like 20, 25 people if you're successful. But right now, thanks to this kind of platforms, we have 100 people. So really, even when the season turns back, this is really going to be the normal, because it works even better than what we had in the past. In business, I am a training consultant, and one of the things I do is corporate emceeing. It was very interesting to try and MC an event online. You're not seeing these people, but you're seeing avatars of them. Like here, typically most people don't have their videos on, but how do you engage these people? But learning how to do that has been very fascinating, and it's become a niche by itself. So it started with a punch on the face and completely being thrown under the bus, but also just waking up and embracing it and using it to work for us, or for me. That's what it was. And I really look forward to even greater times in 2021. Back to you, Richard.
Thank you very much, Eric, for just sharing with us your reflections about 2020, what it was like, and for the panelists, just giving us some insights into that. So we're just going to get started right now. And I'm just going to start off with you, Jackie, because the events of 2020 indeed were very traumatic. Many people lost their jobs. Businesses collapsed. There was disruption of culture, disruption of routine. How do you master the courage of really facing a new year under such a cloud of uncertainty?
You're quite right, Richard. Several people, all of us were affected by 2020 in one way or the other. And the effects could be financial, family disruption, and kids staying at home. But all these effects actually affected our mental health. I think the first thing that we needed to do, or we need to do, is to accept and recognize that there's a change that has happened. There's something significant that has happened in your life. So I don't know what exactly. For different people, it's going to be different things. So for as one person, it could be financial. For another one, could be a marriage. For another, so whatever it is in your case, the first thing to do is to accept that it happened. Acknowledge that it happened, because you cannot work on something that you've not acknowledged. You cannot correct something that you have not actually confirmed and accepted within you that it happened.
And I like what you said about it could mean different things. And this is when I bring in Dr. Wale. So 2020 means different things for different people. So we all have very diversified experiences based on what we had just actually shared as we started off this conversation. So what's the significance of such an experience, and how would that influence our approach or our outlook for 2021 as individuals?
We can either take it as a stumbling block or as a springboard. I think everything at the end of the day boils down to our own personal interpretation of it. Because one of the things I have learned is that we're not so much victims of what happens to us as we are victims of our interpretation of what happens to us. So you have two different people go through exactly the same thing. And one person looks back and says, it was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. And the other person looks back and says, I wanted to commit suicide. It's the same thing that happened to both people. So that means what we need to be focused on is what affects our interpretation. What is it that influences the way we see things? And I think it's our exposure. I think what we expose ourselves to, and that's why you see, nobody prepares for battle in the day of battle. That is so important, because I'm a firm believer in the philosophy that those who live ready don't have to get ready. I'm a firm believer in that philosophy. And that's why I am saying the way I would enter, and somebody might say it's pessimistic, it's not faith and all that. But you see, the way I would enter 2021 is that 2020 was the warm-up. All right? Now, so what am I doing? And what was I doing even before 2020? I kept developing myself. I kept reading wide. I was exposing my mind to different scenarios without knowing what was coming. And you see, when that comes, what happens is that your mind now digs into even resources you don't know that you have, character things, strengths you don't know that you have. It begins to pull them out. Suddenly you remember, oh, you know what? I read about this. This is what happened. I watched this. This is what happened. And all those things now come and help. So I think very, very importantly, it is not so much what happens, but our interpretation of what happens. And to guide our interpretation going forward, we watch the information we allow into ourselves. I hope that helped.
Yes, it does. And, there's something that you've mentioned and you've talked about, and that's about change. And I think this is where Eddah does come in. It's interesting how human nature really sort of like adjusts or conforms to the prevailing conditions of basically the environment. And there are so many things that Eric said that we are very hesitant in terms of adopting, embracing, working from home, webinars and stuff like that, yeah? But the pandemic in a way sort of like did accelerate, that change in ways that actually we can't imagine. And so what do you think, what would be the sort of like mindset that we need to have to be able now to navigate 2021 as we continue to reel from the effects of 2020?
Thank you, Richard. And I really like what Dr. Wale has said. And I want to bring just a little bit of science into it. From science, we know that we have two sides of the brain. So we have what they call the primitive brain or the lizard brain, our saboteur's brain, the one that is very well developed from the time we were children, and it is geared towards looking out for danger, just for survival, to survive long enough. So this brain is hardwired to look out for what is in it that can cause danger to this particular person. And on the other side, we have our positive intelligence brain, yeah? And that is wired to look out for opportunities, look out for areas of growth, look out for how we can be able to deal with the challenges at hand. And these brains are almost mutually exclusive. So when you activate one, you sort of make the other one hibernate, yeah? And so if you look at the situation that we are in right now, and you have lost a job, the company has lost business, things have gone haywire more than you had planned, and you activate your lizard brain or your primitive brain, you get into what Dr. Wale is talking about, reacting, yeah? And you get into a vicious cycle of just seeing problems and more problems and more problems, and you never see the solution. So you're caught up in this cycle of how bad things can be. And unfortunately, we are in a season of our lives that we are so exposed. So I get into Facebook, into social media, and we are complaining about how things are bad, and we just continue in this vicious cycle of how things are bad. But on the other end, what can you be able to do? What is the mindset, as you asked, that we can be able to do to address the challenges that we have? And it's activating our positive intelligence brain. And on the positive intelligence brain, you ask yourself, despite how bad a situation is, you ask yourself, how can I create a gift or an opportunity out of the circumstance that you have? And you have 3 gifts that you can be able to create. The first gift is, you ask yourself, is the gift of knowledge. So you ask yourself, what knowledge do I need to be able to go through the crisis that I'm going through? So say, for example, let's take a company and we have been forced to shut down because of COVID. You ask yourself, what knowledge do we need as a business to be able to continue? One of it could be remote working, maybe something that we had never thought about doing before. But as Dr. Wale says, it was always possible, but we had never thought about it. So what knowledge and skills do we need to equip our teams with so that they can work from home? And then the other one is, you ask yourself, how can I strengthen myself? How can I strengthen my will? Yeah, you don't prepare for battle on the day of the battle. Yeah, you prepare for battle before. So our soldiers right now, wherever they are, they're exercising, they're preparing for battle. They do not know when the battle will show up. So you ask yourself, how can I strengthen my power in the mind? What do I need to strengthen my mind power to prepare myself for this battle that I don't know when it will ever be able to come my way? And so you utilize the challenge at hand for you to be able to utilize that particular opportunity to grow and to become a better person. So one person can get into the vicious cycle of complaining of how bad things are, or you can actually create a gift and an opportunity out of the challenge that we're. And so the mindset that we need to have is to always be able to activate our positive intelligence brain. And it's a deliberate thing. It's not going to happen just by sitting. It's a very deliberate thing of looking at whatever happens from a positive intelligence side, as opposed to looking for danger, reacting and overreacting, and getting angry and getting into the vicious cycle. So that's the mindset that we need to have, Richard.
Oh, very interesting, Eddah, there. So what you're saying is that really we need to be very intentional about this. And that's why I want to bring in Eric now. And I mean, it's interesting because at the turn of the new year, on deck 31st, and just about maybe like the first few days of the new year, when all of us probably, do our plans and, set our goals and things that we set out to do in the new year. I mean, there was a lot of conversation about it. And when people were making fun of, resolution making and stuff like that. So people set out when the year started in 2020 and, events changed as we've all discussed and we've experienced. So it gave people a sense that they are not really in control of their lives and they're sort of like there are no guarantees. So there is no need for planning. I mean, what would you really tell somebody who has resorted to live a life that is literally on cruise or just autopilot? Whatever happens, happens. So there's no point really for planning. There's no point for really being hopeful or ambitious or anything. Anything could just happen.
That's a very interesting question. I think under some of the circumstances that we find ourselves in, it's easy to despair. And sometimes despairing is not because you're not educated. I remember sometime I saw on the news, the reporter was at a park in Nairobi, in Uhuru Park. And the reporter took a story of an individual who was lying on the grass with an envelope on under his head. And it turns out that this guy has a master's degree, but doesn't have a job. So sometimes despairing, there's a lot of reason to despair. But I also find that I agree with what Dr. Wale has said. It's really about attitude. It's really about how you look at it, because you could have people under the same exact circumstance that are looking at things very differently. I want to bring to your attention the story of this Nick Vujicic guy, no hands, no feet, but the guy speaks all over the world and makes millions of dollars with speaking. But if you just go to the streets of the town, of the city you come from, you'll find somebody who doesn't just have two fingers, even one, but they've folded their hand like this and they've decided that they are disabled. So there's a guy who's completely incapacitated, who's making millions in dollars. There's somebody who doesn't have just two fingers, but they've decided to be beggars. So I'd say really it's attitude. You find that your situation is heaven for somebody else. There's somebody else, if they had your life, they would go and give 10% tithe and first fruit offering, and they would give everything at their church, to celebrate what they have. But you think you are in a very precarious circumstance. So I think it really comes down to attitude. And they say, I had a quote that says that life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it. So really having the right attitude. Then secondly, having a plan. And I like to look at business and planning very simply. I know that Eddah is here from Strathmore Business School to give us the structure, but really how I look at it, I'd take someone like Jack Welch, the former chairman and the CEO of General Electric. He says, strategy is very simple. Take a general direction and implement like hell. So just take a general direction. So whatever you are, first of all, just believe that you are better than somebody else. And the fact that you're alive means that there's hope in you. In fact, the Bible says that a dead lion, an alive dog is better than a dead lion. That an alive dog is better than a dead lion. So you could just be an underdog. all right? So take a direction, then commit yourself to implementing. Implement like hell. Tell yourself that at the end of this year, I'm going to have 6 packs, all right? That's the general direction, all right? Now start implementing like hell. Do the press-ups, do the push-ups daily. That's what matters. It's really the implementation like hell. That's how I look at it in a very simple way. I will let Eddah from Strathmore Business School and the rest of these thinkers give us the technicals, but I think it's really simple. Back to you,
Dr. Wale,
Richard.
you want to jump in?
Can I jump in?
When he said 6-pack, I just thank God my wife is not here. My wife calls me her 1-pack boy.
Jackie?
Just to add on that, yeah, because of 2020, one can sit down and decide that I don't want to plan because last year I planned and it didn't go as I planned. What we need to know is that we can make choices, but we cannot substitute the consequence that comes with the choice. And at times, if I say I'm not going to make a decision, that is a choice. Just because I've said I've not decided, I'm not going to decide, does not mean that you've not made a choice. So even not making a choice is a choice, and it comes with its consequence. So it should not feel like this is safer. Please know that the choice of what you've decided that I'm not going to do it also comes, you've taken the package of its consequence. So I think that is all I wanted to add on, that whatever you're choosing comes with its own package of consequence. Even when you say I'm not choosing, there's a consequence towards not choosing.
Mm-hmm. All right, and just before I come to Eddah, Dr. Wale, I just want you to come in this, yeah? Because there's something that Jackie, alluded to when we started the conversation about accepting the reality. So we can't say that we're literally living in a bubble. So my question is then, how do I acknowledge the reality, yet at the same time, I ensure that the prevailing conditions, the environment where we're in does not dampen my enthusiasm and my resilience in 2021?
Thank you, Richard. Let's go back. Eric and I, we're in the same trade. Now, our business revolves around physical interaction. Okay? My business revolves around, I am in a boardroom, I'm in a strategy session, I'm in a training, a leadership training, whatever. It's contact. And then Corona came. So that effectively meant my business as I knew it was over. Okay? But one thing that really worked for me is that I told myself, nobody on earth has any experience in a post-corona world. Nobody has any experience. So this is a game changer and an opportunity for me to redefine and then take the lead. And that is exactly what we did. So we started what we call the Street University, an online platform, and bringing learners and mentors, teachers who have done practical things, bringing them together. Now we are reaching over 30 countries. All right. So what am I saying? It's that, yes, it may not have ended, the year may not have gone the way we wanted it to go. But one thing that we all have the power of, and I think it was my brother that I heard say this. My brother said, even in the dark, your imagination is active. And that has been our philosophy. My mom, and I'll shut up after this. my very first job, I was working in a research institute because my background, I'm a researcher. And we were told to do a research on something. The government had asked us to do this. And my boss gave it to me. He said, just go do it. I was so honored they trusted me with such a thing. I put my all into it. Now, when it was over and it was submitted to the government of Nigeria, the government loved it, they approved it, they celebrated it, and they honored my bosses. What I did not know was that my bosses had removed my name from that whole thing. Now, I was devastated. I cried, went up to my mom, and my mom gave me the one lesson that has controlled my life till today. She said, will you wipe those tears off your face?
Yes.
All right.
It's all right.
Those are the issues of technology. So my mom said, will you wipe those tears off your face before I slap you? So she said, when a chicken lays an egg and you take the egg from it, does it cry? No, no. So will you go and lay more eggs? You have more eggs in you. Stop crying and start laying eggs. That was the change in my life. That I have eggs. Any situation that is trying to stop me from laying eggs, I'm not going to cower and surrender. I'm a fighter. No, I will find another way to lay eggs. And that's why I think a lot of people are too passive with life. A lot of people are too passive. What the life we are living is not a rehearsal. This is the real deal. And I think we need to be more militant with the way we live our lives. We need to be more decisive with the way we live our lives. We need to believe Jesus. He said the kingdom of heaven suffers violence and the violent take it by force.
Thank you, Doc. That's really interesting there. Just talking about being resilient and being really forceful. Basically, it takes a lot of energy for us to be able to break through all this. And that's why, Ed, I just want you to let us in on this and how, probably then, how do we deal with anticipated, probably, stress or distress and challenges that we're likely to experience this year, and just ensuring that we are at our top in terms of personal and maybe like corporate productivity, because I mean, there are challenges that are waiting us in this year. So I'm just wondering then, how do we navigate that? And how do we ensure that?
I would say by having a plan, yeah, and having a plan on all areas. Most of the time, if you ask somebody, what is your personal plan, personal goals and all those, they revolve around mainly finance, maybe going back to school, just 2 or 3 areas, not much, but there's a lot of areas that we need to have a plan about. So whether it is your spiritual life, whether it is your mental health life, how are you taking care of your mental health? How are you taking care of your physical well-being? It doesn't help to be this successful in the corporate world, but you're in bed, you're sick. Yeah. So what is your plan around your physical health? And what are you going to do about it? Because we tend to live such hurried lives and all those kind of things. So what is the plan? And why am I insisting on the plan? So when you look at a flight, they tell us that a flight is about 99% off course most of the time, So there's the north where it is going, there's the compass, and that's why the pilot has the compass. I wish I was a pilot, could give a little bit more information. But yes, the pilot has the compass of where he's going, but he's off course most of the time, but he knows where he's going. And because he knows where he's going, he's able to steer back the plane back to where it is supposed to be. Yeah. So there are going to be challenges for sure. Yeah. Nobody knows what is going to happen this year. Nobody knows whether we are going to be in another lockdown for a long time. Nobody knows. We don't know what is going to happen. So what is the plan for my mental health? What is the plan for my physical health? What is my fallback plan of all those things? And sometimes those plans may not work. I'm sure a lot of the plans we had for business didn't work last year because they were created in an environment that was very different from what the year turned out to be. And that is why when you get into the agile mode and ask yourself, how can I reinvent myself? I go back to my word for the year. How can I reinvent myself? There are businesses that will never go back to the physical offices that they had because they have realized that they can actually cut back on the rentals that they used to spend, the amount of money they used to spend on renting offices. So how can you reinvent yourself in the face of a crisis and still be able to reach to your destination, still be able to reach to your target? Yes, you are off course, the direction is a little bit off, but you still reach to your direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddah. Jackie, it's interesting what Eddah has spoken about, and this is where you come in, because we can have our plans, and then things could change in the course of the journey. But then I'm asking myself, and just looking at what's happening in the world around us, in South Africa, in Nigeria, we're hearing about a new COVID variant, just as we're celebrating having a COVID vaccine. Looking politically, there's so much upheaval, just across the continent. There's a general sense of despondency, and these are some of the things we are likely to encounter as the year rolls by. Then, do you have like personal self-help tips on how I can remain or stay sane?
That's a good question. And I think I agree with what Eddah has said, everything. One of the things that I don't know who lied to us, life is supposed to be in a certain way. It's not supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to change. But actually, life actually comes with storms. But most of the times, we live like storms are not supposed to be there. So the first thing we should know is that life comes with storms. Some challenges we will know, some challenges from our own making, some are out of our control. Like COVID is out of our control. So with that knowledge, you are better off because you will not be found flat-footed, and acknowledging it and accepting that something is changing, this is changing, I need to reinvent, I need to reflect, becomes an easier path for you. So that is the first thing that we should know as human beings, that life comes with its own storms. And there's a difference between a willow tree and a tree that is so stiff, but does not go with the wind. A willow tree can bend and bend over, but with time, it will come back to its course. And I think that is the same thing that Eddah is saying, that we should also build the capacities within us. And like you asked, how is it that we go through a lot of things, but we are able to be better and we are able to sustain it? Because in us, in each and every one of us, God put in us so much strength. It is just that we don't tap in it. But if we tap into ourselves, we have the capacities to go through and overcome all the storms and challenges that can come to us. So mentally accepting and acknowledging that life comes with storms. And when this storm comes, now you can activate the positive, Eddah, you can finish that part of the brain to give you the knowledge and wisdom to actually combat what is happening according to your circumstance. Because again, we will go through it individually according to where we are.
All right, thank you, Jackie. In just a moment, we'll be taking questions from the audience. Already, I'm just seeing a bit of reactions on the timeline here. We have Brian Gashiri who says, we can either take it as a stumbling block or as a springboard. That says, Wale, we're on fire, man. Then we have Naomi Sousa who says, wow, amazing stuff. I'm learning. We're seeing Karemi Kenya who says, very encouraging. Not making a choice is indeed a choice. And Naomi Sousa once again says, and a live dog is better than a dead lion. Interesting. And so that's why I bring in Eric here, because you're in the business of communication. And one of the things that really makes a difference in terms of navigating a crisis is basically communication. What do you think should be, or what needs to change in terms of how we communicate verbally or non-verbally to, say, our staff, clients, shareholders, and family in the course of this year? What do you think really needs to change?
Thank you, Richard, for that question. I really am getting enriched by the conversation that's going on here. I'm taking furious notes, and I'm delighted that I can also make a contribution to this conversation. So what needs to change in terms of our communication, verbally and non-verbally? I don't know what needs to change, but I know that we need to be intentional about it. I think sometimes we are just, especially now that we live in a kind of virtual world, we don't seem to realize that everything we do and don't do is communicating. Everything you put on Facebook, on Instagram, on Tinder, and whatever it is saying something about you. And I think we are very reactive. Someone goes for holiday and they post photos. You go for your holiday, you post photos. Somebody has a baby, they post photos. You have a baby, you have post photos. I think what needs to happen more, in my opinion, is that we need to be in charge of what we are saying. We need to be integrated. And I learned something very interesting, that when the scientists, these beverage makers, like say at Coca-Cola, are making the drink, they ensure the drink has integrity. And the integrity of Coca-Cola is its ability to taste the same in Nairobi, in Kisii, in Addis Ababa, and in Cape Town. It's the same drink. But most of us look different in person. On Facebook, we look different. We look different on a forum. That's because we lack integrity. We are random about our communication. So I think what needs to happen is do what Coca-Cola does to their drink. They are very, very intentional. There's specific ingredients that are going into that drink. Anywhere, any region around the world, they are using exactly the same ingredients. Let's bring this down to an individual. Who are you? Where are you going? Where are you going with this life? That's a good question to ask. Where is this life taking you? Some of us are just on a boat and we are sailing to wherever. But if we were more intentional about where we're going, we would lock the destination and define ourselves. Then in light of that definition, how you look, how you talk, how you dress, what you post, how you SMS, everything needs to be consistent with the person that you are and the dream that you have. So I think the first thing that needs to happen is we've got to be intentional. And the internet never forgets. So some of what you put out there, people are pulling it out when they call you for an interview. People, in fact, even before they call you for an interview, they're going into all that random stuff that you do. And people have been disqualified from jobs just based on what they posted. Then I think secondly, it needs to be authentic. Our communication needs to be authentic. I think there's a facade that we're putting out there that may not be real. We take photos in other people's cars and other people's offices, and sometimes even your family, to use a colloquial word, people, and I'm going to define it, people think uliomoka. People think you made it, and you didn't. So, even when you get into a public transport vehicle, people, the bus fare is hiked because people think you're doing really well and you're not. So I think what needs to happen is those two things. Control, you need to be intentional, and also authenticity. Because I think it's also part of integrity, because if you are really the same person, then you have nothing to hide. I know there's an element of faking it till you make it, but authenticity, people buy into authentic people. People don't want somebody, a Richard Kagoe, who looks like this here, looks differently on BBC, and looks differently when I meet you in the streets. So those two things. Back to you, Richard.
Interesting. And that's why maybe I could go back to you, Jackie. Self-talk, internal conversations that we have, ourselves. Do you think that also does play a role in terms of shaping our thought patterns and our outlook and perspectives?
I think so. I think it answers to what Dr. Wale said. The meaning that we give what happens in our lives and it affects our action. And where does that meaning come? One of the places where the meaning comes from, it's the conversation we have with ourselves. And believe me, we talk to ourselves more than we talk to anyone else in the world. And some of us, it is on autopilot. So we don't even realize that we are talking to ourselves. And this self-talk is exactly what Eddah was also talking about. When you're activating the part of the brain that will support you or the part of the brain that will diminish you. So it is all in our self-talk. Let's not have it in autopilot. And how do I know the self-talk that I'm having is good for me or the self-talk is bad for me? The way you think affects the way you feel. Light and darkness can never stay at the same place. So when I have negative thoughts, my feelings are directly related to my self-talk. So let's not be on autopilot. Let's be mindful and live in the present and realize, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? You will realize most of the time, that it is because of what you're telling yourself. And one other thing that I would want to say is that when you hold a thought or that conversation in your head for more than 7 seconds, the next sentence that will come after that thought will be of the same energy of the thought that you're thinking. What does that mean? It means that if I was thinking a negative thought, oh well, yeah, this thing has happened, now what am I going to do? The next thought after, and I hold it for 7 seconds, this next thought is going to be of the same energy. And it will be agreeing with the first one. Oh yeah, can you imagine how life is hard for you? Yeah, and it will be showing me all the evidence of how life is tough for me. If I'm having that thought and it is positive and I hold it for the 7 seconds, the next one will be showing me, you know, you can do this, you know, it is possible. And my eyes will be open. So our self-talk is very, very crucial. Let's not allow it to be on autopilot.
All right. And Doc, I just want you to come in here because I want to take you back to many years ago. I think I must have had you in a discussion somewhere, and you're just talking about managing in a crisis. And you gave the example, I think, of the days of the Great Depression, and that whilst there was so much wrong that was going on, it's interesting that new businesses emerged in the midst of the crisis. I think you mentioned about HP. I think you mentioned something to do with Sheraton. And the question that is lingering in my mind, and I guess in amongst lots of people, is then how do I spot these opportunities in the midst of a crisis? How do I spot those opportunities in the midst of a crisis? With a cloud of uncertainty, so much volatility around. How do I go about spotting those, opportunities?
All right, thank you very, very much for that. Before I go on, I just want to thank Arlene and the organizers. This is so refreshing, and so I'm learning so much also. And like Eric, I'm taking notes here. It's so refreshing. Thank you so much. There's a word that I like very much, and I talk a lot about it, and it is the word capacity. Capacity. Because at the end of the day, what helps us to take advantage of opportunities or to even see the opportunity as opportunity is our capacity. And there are four areas. For instance, I give an example. You see a car, a Bugatti, $2.5 million. Now, to somebody, that is too much money to pay for a car. It's too expensive. Yet, if you are the Bill Gates of this world, the Bezos, the Elon Musk of this world, you will buy 50,000 Bugattis and not know you have even spent money. And so the issue there is not the cost of the car. The issue there is our capacity. And that's why I keep telling people, never complain about prices. Just go and build your capacity, you know, because everything you say is so expensive, somebody else is paying for it. So it's an issue of capacity. Now, if we don't, there are 4 areas that I believe it's important we build capacity. The Bible says Jesus grew in wisdom, so he grew mentally. He grew in stature, he grew physically. In favor with God, he grew spiritually. And in favor with man, he grew socially. So he grew mentally, he grew physically, he grew spiritually, and he grew socially. Now, I call this the 4 wheels of human development. All of them have to be intact. And you see, our ability to seize opportunities is going to be dependent on how well we have built those areas, how much capacity we have built in those areas. So, for instance, how do we build mental capacity? You know, we build mental capacity, number one, by doing a lot of research, a lot of reading, and the information we're allowing into our system. You know, unfortunately, a lot of people don't like reading. And when I talk about building mental capacity, one of the things I've always believed is there is no advantage in being the brightest among fools or being the most learned amongst the ignorant. We need to build our capacity such that when you have such an eminent panel like what we have today, you know, you are not cowed or intimidated into silence because of the intelligence of Eddah or Jackie or Eric, you know. No. So you are reading, you are researching, and then always, let me tell you something, don't always read only what you understand. Stretch your mind, read things. I have books here that, oh my goodness, I read Hebrew, you know, because I want to understand some dynamics of the Bible. I go study Greek, you know. This is so important because you need to exercise that muscle, and our physical muscles don't get exercised if we're just carrying things that don't challenge it. So it grew mentally. Of course, physically, that one is pretty straightforward. Favor with God, he grew spiritually. And I think everybody is a spiritual being, and you need to know where you draw from spiritually. I draw from the Bible spiritually. So I make sure I am growing spiritually. I get into my office here in the wee hours of the morning. I am building myself spiritually. And then, very important, favor with man. He grew socially. If Jesus had to grow socially, nobody has an excuse. It is very important that, and you know, there are some things I hate. I hate going out. I love my own company, but I do realize that when I do find myself outside, I need to behave well. I need to smile even when I don't feel like it. I need to be very warm even if I don't feel like it, because I need to grow networks. I need to grow my friend base, you know, because at the end of the day, that is where opportunities come from. Somebody that knows you will call you and say, hey, Jackie, have you heard about this? That, you know, now somebody who doesn't have that network with Jackie won't know about it, yet the opportunity was there because you are growing yourself mentally. You see something, you know, I say, wait a minute. It's like what I said. I stayed at home last year for 7 months. I did not step out of the house. 7 months, but I was developing a world-class platform because I saw an opportunity. And like you said, I have the history to inspire me that Hewlett-Packard, Sheraton, Walt Disney, Duracell batteries, KFC, all these are products of the Depression, you know. And in that same year, or in that same depression period, 23,000 people committed suicide. Same event. So I decided, based on the information I had, or based on my capacity mentally, I decided I am going to be one of those people that when the history of Corona is being told in years to come, somebody will say, oh, the Street University is one of the Corona businesses. I hope that answered the question.
Absolutely, and quite elaborate. It's really interesting to, just to get all those insights that you've shared with us. And it's just about really what it takes and what capacity we really need to develop for us to be able now to navigate a crisis and see the positive out of all the negative that's currently ongoing. And just to bring in Eddah here, I think there's something that popped up in the course of our conversation as we started off in the initial stages, and just looking into post-COVID, or as we roll by in the years, some jobs, some roles are going to become irrelevant or obsolete. And there are people who are finding themselves in that situation. And they're really wondering, so what would be the most sensible step for them to take? I don't know whether from where you sit, because you bring the both worlds of academia and consultancy, whatever you do in terms of leadership training. Are there specific trends that we can spot? Are there certain predictions that we have? And how do we then position ourselves to take advantage of that? Because when you look even at your bio, I mean, you started off in finance, transited into logistics. I don't know where you went again, now into the oil industry. Now you've landed in academia. You've been reinventing yourself. And possibly there are lessons that maybe we could be able to pick from that in relation to our reality at the moment.
Thank you, Richard. One of the interesting things, I love science. And what also science tells us is that we have new cells every 7 years or thereabout. Yeah, meaning that even God created in us a system of reinventing. Yeah, and I think that's why the Bible says that they that wait upon the Lord will renew their strength like eagles. The way the eagle renews itself, gets new body, new feathers, new beak, everything. So reinventing is ingrained in our DNA. Yeah. And there's a question that we used to be asked when we were small, which I think is a ridiculous question. What do you want to be when you grow up? It was a famous question when we were young. But the truth is, I'm not sure whether we had the capacity to really answer that question, because even of the exposure that we had, when you ask a child what they want to be when they grow up, they will probably give you an answer based on the exposure they have. So you have the exposure of a pilot, they'll tell you pilot. If they have the exposure of a policeman, they'll tell you a policeman. Whatever exposure they have is what they are going to tell you. But as you grow, and as things happen, is that you get an opportunity to reinvent yourself because you have that capacity to reinvent yourself. So as we move into this new dynamic that we are in, one thing for sure, that anything that has technology business is going to continue growing bigger and bigger. The truth is, before 2020, I'm not sure Ngamia would have thought of holding this webinar like this. Most probably, they would have thought of having a breakfast somewhere in a hotel. It would have been expensive because they would have hired the hotel, they would have had the catering and all those kind of things. And obviously, they would only have been able to get people from the city, from Nairobi city. It was very unlikely that you're going to have somebody traveling from another country just to attend the breakfast. So technology is going to reinvent the way we do things. So when you look at education, and I'm in education, right now, we have the opportunity and schools where you don't need to take your child to school. You can actually subscribe to different schools across the world. So if you want your child to learn French, you can actually get a French person to teach them French right at the comfort of your home. You can get the best maths teacher from whichever country, not necessarily from Kenya, and to teach them that math right from the comfort of your home, and they're going to learn. So when you think about technology, is going to change everything that we do. Yeah, Ngamia right now, it's a technology business. You know, how do we transport our things? Technology, and it's going to just get better and better. So as we look to reinventing ourselves, we have to think about something to do with technology, how we are reinventing ourselves in technology, but also building our skill capacity in terms of the jobs of the future. There are jobs that today will be completely irrelevant in a few days to come because they will be wiped off by technology and the things that will be happening.
All right, thank you very much, Jackie, for letting us in on that, and just the areas that specifically we should be looking at, and where we need to upskill, where we need to continue refining our skill, and just exposing ourselves, just building up from what Dr. Wale had said, you know, exposing ourselves, enriching our minds, expanding our horizons, growing our social network, our network capital, as it were. So some bit of reactions here. I can see Maureen Kabasa, who says the power of self is one thing that most of us do take for granted. It's with self-talk that we can be authentic. Monokelo says, grow networks and your friend base. This is where opportunities come from. Yeah, so we've got Julia Washuka, who says, I have a few questions I would like to hear your thoughts on. Just before we open the Q&A, we'd just like to know from Aline, who's on the other end, whether there are other comments that we can share with our panelists and have them respond, or we just get started off with Julia. Aline?
You can go ahead, Richard. Thank you.
All right, so Julia, we'll open this up to you. What you would do is just mention the speaker's name and, you know, share with us the question that you've got specifically for them. So I'll open this up. So what you could do, you could either type it or we could just allow you to engage. Yeah, so Julia, proceed.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I have no specific speaker in mind, but I'll appreciate anyone's answer and response. My first question is, how do you move on after a rock bottom situation?
Okay.
Do I say all of them first, or I say one by one?
Maybe you could just share with us all the questions, then we're going to see who's going to take it up.
Okay, sawa.
Yes.
Yes, so that's the first one. The second one is school and careers. Just in living in Kenya, is it advisable to follow your passion or to settle for the best chance at a job in Kenya? And also just your thoughts on the two different ways. If one chooses this path, how would you advise? If the other person chooses this other path, how would you advise? And the third question is to Dr. Wale. I'd like to know, why do you do what you do? Yeah, and the fourth question is to Jackie. One, I'm a favorite person. I honestly love your work completely. I think because it's really, I feel it's just amazing. And the question to you is, can you help every mental case, or are others unhelpable? Like, does it ever reach a situation where this cannot be helped anymore? So yeah, so those are my questions. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Julia, for your questions. We also have Brian Gashiri. So Brian will just come in with your questions once we have responses from Julia's bit. So maybe we could start off with Eric. Maybe the first question is, how do you bounce back from rock bottom?
I was hoping to take the second question, but I'm happy to give an attempt to this one. How do you bounce off from a rock bottom situation? And I think these kind of questions warrant personal examples, and I'm wondering which is a politically correct personal situation I can share. But I think looking back at last year, as Dr. Wale rightly said, the space that I operate on is event-based. It's based on, I mean, we never used to do this kind of meetings. This would be, as Eddah said, would be a conference at a hotel. And so when COVID happened, one of the things that happened just based on safety is it's not prudent for people to meet and come together because the disease will spread, and that makes perfect sense. And no one in their right mind wants to put people in danger for whatever reason, even if they're getting knowledge, they're being inspired, they're learning something. And like that, in April, I lost business opportunities. And for me, that was a rock bottom situation. And let me also be very honest. I think one of the things that helped me with this is also communicating that to my family, because I have to be, because there's a couple of months that I went without business. So just coming down and talking to the people close to you, your family and friends, and telling them, hey, Nikubaya, things are rough. And that's harder to admit as a man, but I think it's important to admit that you are at rock bottom, because it helps people attenuate their expectations of you. You know, if you have any creditors, any people that you owe money, I mean, you tell them, hey, this is what's happening. And they are also, and most people are in this life, you know, most people are in this life. Your landlord is alive and he probably had his house locked at some point, you know. So sometimes we fail to connect with people from a human being perspective. I think in a rock bottom situation, be human. Admit that you're at rock bottom, then relate to people in a human way, all right? Don't dodge the landlord, don't dodge the creditors, don't dodge anybody. Just meet them, anybody you have an obligation towards, whether it's your children, your spouse, your neighbors, your business associates, tell them exactly where you are and what they can expect from you. I think we get more pressure from living in a facade we've created, but life has changed. You know, the carpet has been pulled from under your legs, but you want to pretend you still have carpet that you're walking on. You still are walking on red carpet and you're not. So I think one of the things I did is to communicate to people that I had an obligation towards, so that it reduces my pressure. Because I like to keep my word, but there's certain commitments that I could not keep. And in the process, I also got my family to come in as support systems, okay? They even supported me financially because I was open. This is hard for men. Sometimes men want to be men. You know, a man, fight it like a man, but you can't. I mean, you can't. You've tried and you can't. So I think being open is important in a rock bottom situation. Then pick yourself up. Pick yourself up. Les Brown says that when you fall down with your head facing up. So fall down, but look up. Then tell yourself, okay, I'm down, but how do we pick it up from here? And this is when now, like last year, I started to immerse myself into this kind of technology, this kind of meeting technology, how we can take advantage of this technology and thrive in it. I learned so much from this, especially through Toastmasters, because Toastmasters operates through this kind of media. So the first thing I'd say is be honest with yourself and be honest with people you have an obligation towards. Then secondly, be flat, lie down, you're down. All right, you're down. Agree that you're down, okay? But pick yourself up. Start taking the first positive step. The Chinese have an ancient saying that says that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Then after you take your little step, celebrate it. Did you notice that nowadays children in nursery school are given graduation gowns? They're given a whole set of graduation gowns to tell them that this is a significant step. So in your down moment, if you take one step in the right direction, be happy, throw a party, Take yourself out for pizza. You know, if you get paid your first 1,000 shillings, go buy yourself the big Coca-Cola. Say, you know what? It's time to celebrate. And there's something that does to you. It throws positive energy to you and it helps you get to the next step. So I think those are the two immediate things I'd say. Be very honest with yourself. Be very honest with the people around you. Then secondly, pick yourself up and start taking small steps. No matter how baby steps they are, you are inching closer to the place that you want to go. Back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Eric, and thank you so much. I don't know whether the bit about celebrating milestones with pizza and a Coke could work for some of us who want to have 6 packs. I don't know. Okay, thank you. So maybe I could just go to Doctor. Why do you do what you do?
It's a very, very simple thing, and I will link it to the second question. I'm happy I get to talk about the second question and Eric didn't. And you know, and Eric is probably going to shoot what I'm about to say. He's probably going to shoot it down right now. I think passion is overrated. And I will tell you why. Your success is not, at the end of the day, is not going to lie with what you are passionate about. It's going to lie with what you are good in. And a lot of people, yes, look, the fact that you are passionate about something does not mean you are necessarily good in it, because passion is like crude oil. It is crude. If you put crude oil in your car, you will knock your engine. And so when I look at a lot of the problems I have gotten into in my life, they were because I was passionate. I was following my passion. All right. So I learned that I need to temper my passion with knowledge. When I temper my passion with knowledge, then it gives me a more holistic perspective of life. All right. I give you an example. I'm very passionate about, communicating knowledge. And that's why I do what I want to do, what I do, because I'm passionate about the African continent. And I think we have shortchanged ourselves. We have shortchanged ourselves as a continent because we made ourselves the dumping ground of the world. We made ourselves the dumping ground. So technology they don't want, they dump it on us and we celebrate it as a milestone. And I felt I can't do that. Call it arrogance, call it something. I can't do that. And I believe that most Africans are like me. They just need to get the right information. So I am that trigger. So that's why I do what I do. I am that trigger that when it's all said and done, and I am dead, and they write on my gravestone, they say, here lies a passionate African who changed the way Africans think. That's why I do what I do.
Amazing, incredible. Wow, that's simply summarizes what really drives you and what keeps you awake at night. Good to know, Doc, and just giving us some insights into how actually we could develop that to our own. Maybe I'll have a question for Eddah before I come to you, Jackie. Jackie, so there's a question here from Sarah. She says, then how do you ensure balance between work-life balance? So specifically working from home, remotely, and other aspects of life, physical, mental health, and family. So a balanced life. I mean, is that an illusion? Is it possible? How do you do it yourself?
Is that for Eddah or Jackie? You've been calling
Eddah, sorry, for Eddah. Sorry. Okay, that's for Eddah. Jackie, coming to you in a moment.
It's okay.
Richard, we should fine you for confusing our name.
From where I sit, the display, exactly.
The same. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you balance work and life? I personally believe in work-life integration, as opposed to the balance. Why do I think of the integration? Because if you look at this time, and I think this is a perfect time when we have been forced to be homeschoolers overnight, that we had no idea how to homeschool, but we became homeschoolers. We also became remote workers overnight, so just many things just happened, and most of those things we never had the capacity, or not the capacity, but we had not actually done that before. So the question is, in between the work, I will have to go and check how the children are checking their work and studying, because not all of us had the privilege of having the online classes, having teachers teach them online. Some people couldn't afford that to be able to do that. So you had to become the teacher. So in between your work, you still run and be able to check what the kids are learning, and maybe even teach them for a few minutes as you leave them with some work and come back and do the thing. So I believe in integration. Sometimes the work will take up a bit of work, a bit of time, and sometimes the home will take a bit of time. The question is, can you still be able to have a 20?
Sorry, we seem to have lost Eddah. There's a problem with her line. So maybe we'll have just quickly summarize that when she gets back. But maybe now I could cross over to Jackie. And Jackie, there are quite a number of questions for you. So when do you know that you're having issues with mental health, that you're at risk? How do you cope? Rather, what do you do when coping mechanisms that you used to have before to deal with mental issues don't seem to work anymore? And then there's one more here. There have been increased mental health challenges, including depression due to averseness to change. How are individuals, families, schools, employers going to begin to deal with this as the aftermath of the pandemic? So there are three loaded questions there. So you could start off at one point, do you realize you're having issues with mental health,
I think there's one that was asked by the lady that called.
Yeah, Julia, yes.
Yeah. And maybe let's start with that one. Does every mental case, is it helpable, or some are unhelpable? When we talk, when we call it mental case, it's stereotyped. So first, I want to start with what is mental health? What encompasses mental health? Our mental health encompasses our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Those are the three main areas of our mental health. Now, like physical health, some of us can get interventions that can support us to be mentally well, to support our mental well-being by just therapy, talk therapy. Some of the cases, it is diagnosed as a disease. I know we use most of the mental health diseases words loosely. Today I was so depressed, So we really use these words loosely, but they're actually diagnoses. So if you've been diagnosed with a mental health illness, you will be assigned several interventions. Some will heal, just like physical health. There's sometimes you go to the hospital, we are diagnosed, we are prescribed, and we're given medicine and we heal. But there are times we go to the hospital, we are diagnosed, and we are told, for you to maintain your physical health, you'll be having this medication for the rest of your life. Does that mean that, I don't know if now I should categorize that as unhelpable, but because I think if already you can be prescribed something, that is the help and support you can get. So it depends with what is affecting you at that time. So seek medical help, and you will know whether this can be treated through interventions, a short-term intervention, or this will be a long-term intervention. How do I know that I have a mental health issue? Or how do I know I should seek help? If at all, there's a significant change in the way you live. The things that you used to do, the things that you used to like, you don't like anymore. You're not, you don't, you're feeling down, you're feeling sad, you cannot lift yourself up anymore. And it's taking longer periods. Then that means you may need to talk to somebody, that I am not living the way I used to live. I cannot do the things that I used to do. And this has taken a week, it takes 2 weeks. Help me. And Also, if significant things have happened in your life, and the significant things are like losing jobs, death, significant changes have happened in your life, and you have tried to cope so that you can go back to your life the way it is, to your new normal, despite the change, and that becomes difficult, then you may need to talk to somebody to support you to walk through this journey. So many times we stereotype people who go and seek help, mental health care help, but when people go to seek for mental health care help, those people are aware. And it's like us laughing at somebody who goes to the hospital because they are coughing or because they're physically ill. So it should not be stereotyped. I don't know if I have answered the two questions, Richard.
Yes, I think sufficiently you have given us a bit of insights regarding that.
Yes.
Maybe you could just pause for a moment, then we could have Eddah just conclude, because at some point we lost her because of the line, and she was just responding about work-life balance. Eddah, welcome back.
Thank you, and my apologies for that technology. But I was saying about being intentional, being intentional about both work and life, So if it is issues to life, just like the way you're intentional about work, sometimes we give so much weight to work that I will miss something important for my family because of work. Of course, that is going to happen one day or the other, but it cannot be the norm. It's that you're intentional about your work and you're also intentional about life. And regarding to work, is that you can give your best, you can give your all, and you can go over and above just doing the bare minimum, just getting by. You're not just getting by, but you're giving your very best. If you want to grow, even in the corporate space, even in the work, even in entrepreneurship, even in the business, it can't just be the bare minimum. You have to go the extra mile, do the extra mile, but also even at home, be intentional and also go the extra mile. So I would say, one, being intentional, and two, being able to integrate both, So it's not feeling guilty because sometimes the life has taken a little bit of work, or the work has taken a little bit of life. It's ensuring that at the end of the day, whatever you have set your goals and you're intentional about, you still can be able to achieve, despite the maybe the challenges and the making of trade-offs that you may be able to make from time to time. Thank you, Richard.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope that does answer your question. I appreciate for the insight. So we're going to be wrapping up in the next about 5 minutes, but I just have maybe Eric, you could respond to a question on then how do you pick a mentor? What sort of are the qualities? What should you look out for? How do you basically go about it? If you have a mentor, maybe you could cite how you went about it, how you settled for one.
That's a really good question. And I want to be very careful in how I answer this question, because Dr. Wale has mentored me. So if you've had me speak in any crazy way, it's because of Dr. Wale, right? But if I'm doing well, so he's doing a good job. So how do you pick a mentor? First off, I think you want to appreciate the need for a mentor. And let me reference my mentor at this point. I had Dr. Wale say once that a mentor will save you from 10 years of foolishness, because a mentor's hindsight becomes your foresight. So, we live in a world, especially the younger people, we live in a world where we have access to a lot of knowledge. You could go to YouTube right now and access literally anything. And sometimes we feel that we know, but there's something, you could watch YouTube and all that, but it's different when you walk with somebody who's been on that journey. These people have practical experiences about the downs and the ups of that journey. So the first thing I'd recommend on mentorship is establishing the need for it, establishing that you don't know everything, establishing that there's people who've been on that journey before. And these people could very well save you, in the words of Dr. Wale, 10 years of foolishness. Then secondly, you want to get a good fit of a mentor. You want to get a mentor who's at the place where you want to be, all right? Because you know, I could see you, Richard, Richie here on this call and say, hey, I want Richie to mentor me. But, you know, my interest is in IT, and IT is the thing that Richie ran away from. You know, you want to have a good match to a mentor, because sometimes we get somebody who's popular, we get people who are, what do you call them? You know, these iconic people and superstars, and don't get a superstar or an influencer. Get somebody who's at the destination where you want to get. It's even easier for a mentor. It's easier for me to speak to somebody who wants to know how I did things 10 years ago than somebody who's stretching me into a field that I don't know. So identify your need for a mentor. Secondly, get a mentor who's at the place that you want to be. Then thirdly is take, one of the ways to attract a mentor, it's not easy to do it, is give them, because we look at a mentor as a receiving relationship. So one of the ways to partner with a mentor is look at somebody like Dr. Wale. He has so many seminars, he has so many workshops. How about you volunteer to support him in an area that, you know, I know for sure that he's not very administrative. He doesn't like small things, paperwork and taking registrations. And maybe those are things you could do very well. So I'd say, give yourself to this. Whatever you give, you shall receive. Remember, it's you receive to the level that you give. So don't look at a mentor, and don't be a leech to a mentor. Allow me to just go straight forward to what I mean. Don't look at it like something you just want to take from. Look at it as, how can I be of value to this guy so that he'll be happy to give me value? So in summary, 3 things real quick is, you need a mentor. Appreciate that you need a mentor. Then secondly, match your mentor right. Get somebody who's at the place where you want to go. Then finally, give. Don't look at it as a receiving relationship. Look at it as an opportunity to give something. If you can give something to them, I can guarantee you they'll be happy to reciprocate. Back to you, Richie.
Thank you very much. I like the way you're doing this summary, Eric. Thank you so much. I guess that did help. Just about the journey of identifying a mentor. So I've only got like 3 minutes to wrap up our discussion today. I'll just have Jackie, and then Eddah, you'll have the closing comment. And so Jackie, the question has been, there've been increased mental health challenges, issues. Basically, we're staring at a mental health crisis. What can families, what can schools, what can employers just do just to ensure that you know, we can check this probably now and even post the coronavirus crisis?
I think it's true. There's been an increase of mental health issues. First, it's because of what has happened and what is happening around us in life. But I think the most important thing that we need to do is first to make mental health a priority. Talk about it. Let's make it as important as our physical health. Somehow, mental health is always at the back side. So we need to make awareness to people to know that just like it is important for them to take care of their physical health, it is also important to take care of your mental health. They have a symbiotic relationship. Now, the second thing is the stereotyping and stigma on mental health. Let us know that just like we can be sick physically, some sickness that we have in our physical bodies, we live with them for life and we just manage them. There are people who manage their mental health issues for life. And we should not stigmatize them so that they don't go and take medication or they don't get intervention that they need. So let's stop stigmatizing it. How do we do that? Also by awareness. And thirdly, these two that I've talked about involves society, the government, the country, a lot of people. However, the last thing that is very important, is now, what do you do individually? Take care of your mental health. Seek support if you need to. Don't shame yourself or stereotype yourself and not seek help. So seek support for your mental health if you need to. Learn to take care of it, sleep well, your self-talk, do things that actually ground you. And like Dr. Wale said, it is one of the capacities that we need to build if we want a better life. So let's not neglect it.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jackie. So we need to normalize discussions around mental health, and we just remove misconceptions around mental health. Thank you so much for that. So Eddah, you get the opportunity to give us a closing remark and just to wrap up the discussion today.
Thank you, Richard. I want to wrap it up with a quote that says, learning is about change in behavior. You haven't learned a thing until you take action and use it. Yeah, I can repeat that.
Yes.
Learning is about change in behavior. You haven't learned a thing until you take action and use what you have learned. So you have learned today, and maybe you're reading books and all those kind of things, but it doesn't help if you don't take change, you don't take action and use what you have learned for the betterment of your days in 2021 and even beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate actually for that. So it's a call to action, and just making sure that we implement whatever we have learned from this discussion. Dr. Wale, can we just give you a minute, because we only got a minute to wrap up this discussion today?
I think I'm just grateful. Thank you. I have learned so much from Eddah, from Eric, from Jackie, and maybe we could exchange numbers and we can all take the conversation, forward to other platforms. But I've really learned a lot. So thank you very much for having me here. It's an honor to be here.
And it's been a pleasure also having you in this discussion. So thank you very much, Dr. Wale. We appreciate you. And we thank you so much, Eddah Munyi, Eric Muriithi, and Jackie Keya, for just taking time to share with us your insights and basically what you've learned out of your own individual experiences from the spaces where you operate in. Also just want to thank everybody who came in and participated, just listening in and engaging us even with their questions and answers, and also the comments that have been coming in, and just being part of this whole experience. So it's been a pleasure. Should you have any questions or any more comments and you would like to connect directly, so well, you have it there. You can reach out via Twitter or LinkedIn. And what you could do, you can also, follow us at Ngamia Africa. So that's on Twitter. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending. It's been a pleasure having you on board during this discussion, and we wish you a blessed 2021. All the very best. I'm Richard Kagoe, and good evening and a blessed weekend.
Thank you.